The PlayStation 4 might be remembered for its cinematic masterpieces and groundbreaking exclusives, but let's not forget that this console has also delivered some of the bloodiest, most violent games of its generation. From zombie-slaying epics to horror nightmares that made you raise your eyebrows, the PS4 pushed the limits of what players could digest. Today, we're looking into the games that didn't just flirt with violence, but embraced it, celebrated it, and sometimes shocked us with how far they went. Whether it's brutal fatalities, gruesome monsters, or bone-crunching hand-to-hand combat, these are the titles that left a mark for their unapologetic approach to violence. So, let's count down the top 15 ultra-violent PS4 games you need to play right now, only if you dare. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Oh, brother.
Mortal Kombat 11. Talking about violent games on PS4, there's no way to skip Mortal Kombat 11. This game doesn't just embrace gore and turn it into an art form. Released in 2019, MK11 pushed the franchise's reputation for blood-soaked fighting to its absolute peak, with fatalities that are so over the top they almost feel surreal. You've got spines being ripped out, faces sliced in half, bodies exploded from the inside, and somehow, it all looks even more brutal in 4K detail. Beyond the shock factor, MK11 is also one of the tightest fighting games of this generation. The combat is smooth, strategic, and rewarding, with every punch and kick carrying real weight. The roster mixes returning icons like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Raiden with newer fighters, each armed with jaw-dropping special moves. Then there are the fatal blows, cinematic finishers that let you unleash pure carnage once your health drops low. The story mode also surprised fans, delivering time-bending chaos that tied together decades of lore. Critics praised the depth, but let's be real, most players came for the violence, and MK11 delivered like hell. Some even argued it crossed the line, but that controversy only made the game more popular. Simply put, Mortal Kombat 11 is the poster child of video game violence on PS4. It's stylish, it's shocking, and it sets a new bar for how far fighting games could go with their brutality. Dying Light. Few zombie games capture the raw, up-close brutality as Dying Light does. Developed by Techland, this open-world survival horror masterpiece makes every swing of your weapon feel personal and often horrifying. Dying Light drops you into the infected city of Heron, where every encounter is a fight for survival, and every kill leaves a mess behind. Limbs snap, heads roll, and the blood doesn't stop flowing. The standout feature of this game is the mix of parkour freedom and brutal combat. One moment you're sprinting across rooftops. The next, you're in the thick of it, smashing a pipe wrench into a zombie's face and watching it crumple in gory detail. The melee system is where the violence shines. Weapons degrade, bones crunch audibly, and the finishers make sure you never forget the impact of your choices. There's also a nightfall mode. When the sun goes down, the game transforms into a nightmare. Stronger, faster volatiles hunt you down, and suddenly the gore takes a back seat to pure terror. Fans praised how the violence wasn't just flashy, but meaningful, reinforcing the desperate tone of the story. The game's narrative isn't groundbreaking as you play as undercover agent Kyle Crane, trying to infiltrate Heron's quarantine zone. It's the atmosphere and carnage that truly hooked players. Combined with its co-op mode, where you and friends could carve through hordes together, Dying Light has become one of the most viscerally satisfying survival horrors on PS4.
Nicole?
Dead Space Remake. When the Dead Space remake dropped on PS4 and PS5 in 2023, fans knew it was going to be violent, but nobody was prepared for just how far EA Motive pushed the gore. The original 2008 game was already infamous for its dismemberment system, but the remake turned every encounter into a stomach-churning spectacle. The peeling system is the star here. Every shot, every slash, tears flesh away from necromorphs layer by layer until you're left with nothing but muscle and bone. It's disturbingly detailed, and it forces you to think strategically while you're knee-deep in carnage. You step into the boots of Isaac Clarke, an engineer trapped on the doomed USG Ishimura, armed with makeshift weapons like the iconic plasma cutter. The remake retains the claustrophobic horror of the original, while amplifying the violence with cutting-edge visuals and sound design. Every scream, every squelch of torn tissue makes the gore feel uncomfortably real. Fans and critics praised it not just for being gruesome, but for staying faithful to survival horror roots. In a generation where violence can sometimes feel like shock value, Dead Space Remake reminded everyone that brutality can also be terrifyingly immersive.
Told you. Maybe you should have.
The Last of Us Part 2. If there's one game that divided fans but still set the bar for brutal realism, it's The Last of Us Part 2. It isn't your typical zombie shooter or post-apocalyptic thriller. It's a game that forces you to feel every single act of violence. Naughty Dog didn't shy away from showing the cost of survival, and it's this unflinching brutality that had people talking long after the credits rolled. Ellie's journey takes center stage here, and her quest for revenge paints the story in blood. Enemies don't just drop like faceless fodder. They cry out for fallen friends, they fight with desperation, and they feel more human than the average game. That realism makes the violence land differently, not as spectacle, but as a reminder that every action has weight. Even the stealth kills and melee takedowns are designed to be intimate, almost too close for comfort. What makes The Last of Us Part 2 so famous is that it doesn't glorify the gore, but it doesn't flinch away from it either. Unlike many games where gore is spectacle, here it's a consequence, and that's why it lingered with so many. Last of Us Part 2 isn't just one of the most violent PS4 games, it's one of the most emotionally devastating too. It leaves you conflicted, questioning your choices while still pushing forward. Love it or hate it, it's one of the most violent and most talked about games on PS4, and its impact on players is undeniable.
Against. I have a pretty damn good idea.
Claire, get out. Get out now!
Resident Evil 2 Remake. Resident Evil 2 Remake dropped in 2019, and it wasn't just a nostalgic throwback. It was a blood-soaked masterclass in how to modernize survival horror. Fans of the 1998 original expected zombies, sure, but what they got was a level of gore that felt almost obscene for a mainstream AAA release. The violence isn't just background dressing here, it's in your face, relentless, and designed to make your stomach churn. From the very first encounter, the tone is set. Zombies don't just fall with a few bullets. Their flesh shreds, jaws dangle, and heads explode in horrifyingly realistic detail. Shoot a leg, and it'll stagger with bone poking through. Aim for the skull, and you'll see chunks of it splatter across the Raccoon City Police Department's walls. It's violence that feels disturbingly tactile, making every bullet count both mechanically and emotionally. The game lets you play as Leon Kennedy or Claire Redfield, both trapped in the nightmare of Raccoon City. The claustrophobic environments, combined with creepy enemy designs like the Lickers and William Birkin's monstrous mutations, keep the tension high. Every encounter reminds you that this isn't an action game, it's a survival horror, where violence is not a choice but a necessity. Fans and critics hailed the remake as one of the best horror experiences of its generation. Its blend of modern visuals, brutal detail, and classic atmosphere has made it one of the most definitive version of one of the most violent and beloved games in the series.
Is now.
Doom Eternal. If pure, unfiltered carnage is what you're after, Doom Eternal is the ultimate bloodbath on PS4. Released in 2020, this game doesn't just flirt with violence, it revels in it, throwing you into arenas where ripping demons apart is as natural as breathing. The brutality is the core mechanic, and ID Software makes sure every second of it feels like a symphony of destruction. The combat loop is built around speed, aggression, and gore. Glory kills let you tear demons apart with your bare hands, snapping necks, ripping jaws, and punching straight through skulls in slow-motion glory shots. Chainsaw kills spray fountains of blood and guts, while the iconic super shotgun now comes with a meat hook that literally drags you into enemies for close-up executions. The game's story continues the saga of the Doomslayer, humanity's unstoppable one-person army against Hell's forces. The focus is all about combat arenas drenched in gore, heavy metal riffs blasting in the background, and demons being reduced to pulp in some of the most creative ways possible. Critics highlighted its sheer intensity, though some admitted the relentless pace could be exhausting. If you're measuring ultra-violence and mindless slaughter, few PS4 games come close to this level of non-stop slaughter. Hotline Miami Collection. On the surface, Hotline Miami doesn't look like one of the most violent games on PS4. Its top-down, pixelated style almost makes it seem retro and harmless. The Hotline Miami Collection, which bundles the first game, and Hotline Miami 2, Wrong Number, is proof that you don't need ultra-realistic graphics to deliver shocking levels of violence. The setup is deceptively simple. You receive cryptic phone calls instructing you to carry out assassinations. From there, it's all chaos. You smash in doors, gun down enemies, and bludgeon goons with whatever weapon you can grab. Baseball bats, knives, shotguns, even frying pans. Death comes just as fast to you. So every level becomes a trial and error bloodbath, where violence isn't just encouraged, it's mandatory. The brutality is made even more disturbing because of the perspective. You're looking down at pixel people, but the splashes of neon blood, the twitching corpses, and the sheer pace of it all create a dizzying, unsettling rhythm. Each stage ends with you walking back through the carnage you created, forced to take in the bodies and pools of blood you left behind. It's not just violent, it's reflective, almost mocking you for enjoying it. Mortal Kombat X. Before Mortal Kombat 11 took things to the next level, Mortal Kombat X was already setting new standards for video game violence on PS4. Dropped in 2015, this game carried the franchise's reputation for gore into a new generation, and fans were shocked by just how graphic it got. The fatalities in MKX weren't just over the top, they were some of the most stomach-churning finishing moves ever created. Skulls were cracked open in first-person views, intestines spilled onto the ground, and hearts were ripped out with such detail you could almost feel the squish through the screen. The roster was a bloody dream list, bringing back legends like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Raiden, while introducing brutal newcomers like Devora, who killed enemies by infesting them with insects, and Cassie Cage, who made her mark with one of the most ridiculous yet gory finishers. The X-ray moves also pushed the envelope, slow-motion sequences that showed bones shattering, organs puncturing, and brains being skewered, all with horrifying clarity. MKX stood out due to how polished the gameplay felt compared to its predecessor. The combat was fast, fluid, and balanced, making it not just one of the most violent games on PS4, but also one of the best fighting games. Fans embraced the brutality, while critics praised its mechanics and content depth. The Mortal Kombat series as a whole has always set the tone for ultra-violence in fighting games on modern consoles. It has shocked, entertained, and proved that even decades after its debut, Mortal Kombat could still make jaws drop. Outlast 2. If you thought the first Outlast was disturbing, then Outlast 2 takes everything and cranks the horror and the violence up to unbearable levels. This game doesn't give you weapons. It doesn't let you fight back. Instead, it forces you to survive while witnessing some of the most twisted and graphic scenes ever put in a video game. You play as journalist Blake Langerman, stranded in the Arizona desert with your wife after a helicopter crash. What seems like a simple rescue quickly spirals into a nightmarish descent involving religious cults, mutilation, and visions that blur the line between reality and delusion. The violence here isn't just buckets of blood. It's executions, torture, desecration, and graphic depictions of suffering that left many players shaken. Outlast 2 thrives on helplessness. Your only tools are a camcorder with night vision and the will to keep moving while maniacs hunt you down. You're treated to gruesome death animations, each one more brutal than the last. From decapitations to spikes impaling you in ways you'll wish you could unsee every time they succeed in catching you. Some loved the sheer extremity, while others felt it went too far. One thing's certain, Outlast 2 is one of the most violent and helpless experiences you can have on PS4.
She is the key to the gate of unending agony. She is the answer.
Agony. When Agony dropped in 2018, it promised players a trip straight into the depths of hell, and it delivered, though not always in the way fans expected. It isn't just a horror game, it's a descent into the most violent, gruesome, and disturbing imagery you'll ever see on PS4. Every inch of the environment is designed to shock. Walls made of writhing flesh, rivers of blood, and tortured souls screaming in agony, all brought to life in horrific detail. Playing as a damned soul with no memory, trying to escape hell by finding the mysterious red goddess is a trauma of its own. But on top of that, the escape isn't simple. Along the way, you're surrounded by suffering, mutilated bodies, demonic creatures, and visuals that lean hard into torture and gore. What really unsettled people wasn't just the blood, it was the sheer relentlessness of it. The violence here isn't flashy or fun, it's meant to disturb you. Gameplay-wise, Agony mixes stealth and survival, giving you the ability to possess demons to navigate the twisted world. Fans' reactions were mixed. Some players appreciated how far it went in creating a truly hellish vision, while others found it more exploitative than scary. Critics slammed it for clunky mechanics, bugs, and pacing issues. What kept people talking was its controversial imagery, scenes so graphic that the developers had to censor the console version to avoid bans. However, an unrated edition was later released on PC. The Evil Within series. For gamers looking for psychological horror blended with outright brutality, The Evil Within and its sequel are must-plays on PS4. Directed by Shinji Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil, this series leans hard into gore, gruesome monsters, and the kind of violence that feels as much psychological as it is physical. In the first game, you step into the shoes of Detective Sebastian Castellanos, pulled into a nightmarish world where reality constantly twists. Enemies aren't just zombies or cultists, they're disturbing creations that look stitched together from raw flesh and bone. Combat is raw and unforgiving. Headshots splatter skulls, traps shred bodies into pieces, and stealth kills plunge knives straight through brains. It's graphic, uncomfortable, and intentionally overwhelming. The sequel, The Evil Within 2, refined the gameplay with a more open structure, but didn't tone down the violence. If anything, it went further with creepy set pieces. Mutant abominations ooze, tear, and scream, while boss fights play out like something out of a horror dream. Even Sebastian himself isn't spared. Death animations are some of the nastiest around, showing exactly what happens when you fail to survive. Fans praise the series for combining classic survival horror with modern gore, though some criticize the uneven pacing. Still, what made both games memorable wasn't just the blood, it was the way the violence tied into the atmosphere, making every encounter feel terrifying and meaningful.
What's left? But I'll always remember.
Days Gone. Days Gone might look like just another open-world zombie game, but spend a few hours in its world, and you'll see why it deserves a spot among the PS4's most violent experiences. Dropped in 2019, Bend Studios' biker survival epic doesn't hold back when it comes to gore, brutality, and the sheer chaos of facing thousands of infected at once. Playing as Deacon St. John, a drifter, you try to survive in post-apocalyptic Oregon. The violence isn't just for shock value, it's woven into every fight for survival. Melee combat is raw and bloody, with bats, machetes, and makeshift weapons crushing skulls and bone-snapping detail. Gunplay adds to the carnage, but the real spectacle comes from the hordes. Waves of hundreds of freakers charging at you, bodies piling up as bullets and explosions tear them apart in gruesome fashion. Few PlayStation 4 games match that scale of destruction. The violence isn't just limited to the infected. Human enemies can be just as brutal, and stealth takedowns drive home the savagery with up-close executions. The story also carries its own kind of violence, with loss, revenge, and sacrifice playing out against the blood-soaked storyline. Although it didn't get as much fame as compared to other titles on this list, its fans are still stuck with it for the sheer intensity of the combat and the guilty pleasure of mowing down entire hordes. Today, it's remembered as one of PS4's most underrated yet intentionally violent survival games. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 dropped like a lightning strike to the franchise and to players everywhere. Capcom had put the players directly in the nightmare with a first-person perspective that made every slash, stab, and decapitation feel way too close for comfort. The violence in this game isn't flashy, but intimate, claustrophobic, and unflinchingly brutal. The protagonist of the game is Ethan Winters, an ordinary man searching for his missing wife in a decaying Louisiana plantation. What he finds is the Baker family, and their hospitality is anything but warm. Chainsaws revving through torsos, shovels slammed into skulls, and shotguns blowing apart infected monsters are all part of the course. One of the most infamous moments is Ethan's hand being severed, only for him to reattach it later. Like it's nothing. The violence doesn't just stop at combat. The Bakers torment you with psychological and physical brutality, from being force-fed human remains to dodging a swarm of insects. The lingering feeling of being trapped in a house where everything wants to kill you in the most horrific way possible keeps you unsettled and on your toes. Fans and critics celebrated Resident Evil 7 as a return to survival horror glory, and its violence was central to that impact. Few PS4 games make you feel this close to the blood, and fewer still make you actually enjoy it. Sifu, this game proved that you don't need monsters, chainsaws, or gallons of gore to deliver some of the most brutal combat on PS4. Instead, this martial arts brawler made violence feel sharp, raw, and personal thanks to its bone-crunching hand-to-hand combat and its unique aging mechanic. Every punch, kick, and slam lands with an intensity that makes you stare. And by the time you finish a fight, the room is littered with broken bodies and shattered furniture. Play as a young kung fu student on a revenge mission. The story itself is straightforward, but the gameplay makes it unforgettable. The combat is fast and precise, with players using blocks, parries, and counters to dismantle enemies. There's no holding back here. You can slam heads into walls, smash bottles across faces, and take down groups of enemies in ways that feel straight out of a Hong Kong action flick. The violence is realistic without exaggeration, which makes it even more brutal. What sets Sifu apart is its aging mechanic. Each time you die, your character grows older, trading youth and vitality for experience and raw power. That cycle of violence becomes part of the narrative, forcing you to decide how much punishment you can endure before finishing your quest. It is one of the most realistic, satisfying, and violent hand-to-hand combat experiences on the PS4. It may not have fountains of blood like Mortal Kombat or Doom Eternal, but Sifu is violent in a way that feels painfully real. Marvelous verdict. When you look at this lineup, one thing becomes crystal clear. The PS4 is not just a cinematic playground, it is also a playground for some of the most brutal, shocking, and unforgettable games of this generation. From the cinematic brutality of The Last of Us Part 2 and the raw chaos of Doom Eternal to the disturbing nightmares of agony and pure madness of hatred, this era pushed boundaries in every possible direction. What ties all these titles together isn't just the gore or the violence, but the way each game used brutality to leave a lasting impression. Some made you high with their realism, others leaned into over-the-top carnage, but every single one stuck in your memory long after you put down the controller. So, which one do you think deserves the crown as the most violent PS4 game of them all? Drop your pick in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss more deep dives into gaming's wildest, bloodiest corners. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us. If you haven't already, have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.